What are sus chords? In one of the previous videos where we were asked to identify a harmony, a number of you labeled it as a sus or a suspended chord. And I want to talk a little bit about what suspended chords actually are, because I think some people are a little unclear on it. A suspended chord is a chord that is missing the third of it, okay? So when you think of major and minor chords, let's take, for instance, a C major and a C minor chord. A C major chord has the notes C, E, G, and then the C minor chord has the notes C, E flat, and G. The only difference between these two chords is the middle note, okay? When the middle note is missing, the third of the chord is absent. That means you can't tell whether it's major or minor just from the chord itself. So the defining characteristic of a major or minor chord is that middle note, the third of the chord. When you have a suspended chord, that note is not present. Okay, let me give you an example here. If we were in the key of, let's say, D minor, and we had the notes D, and then let's put a G, and how about another D, and on top, let's throw an A in there. Okay, so this chord here is almost a D minor chord, D, F, A, but this note G here doesn't fit in the regular triad. This would be an example of a suspended chord. In a chord symbol, it would be labeled as D sus 4, okay, because the G is a fourth above the root of the chord, and then maybe on the next chord you'd get a full D minor chord with the F instead of the G. Now, in popular music, in jazz, when you're looking at chords and labeling them as suspended chords, you're really just looking at the vertical chord, the stack notes, what's happening right now, okay? It doesn't really matter what comes before it or what comes after it. In classical harmony, like voice leading, think like chorale music or something, music of Bach, for instance, what's going to happen is the G in this case is going to probably drop down to the F. And so here we have a suspended chord, but then here we get a D minor chord and the suspension is resolved. So when you're thinking in terms of classical music, here's what it is. It's the note itself that would be labeled as a 4-3 suspension, okay? And then the 4-3 suspension is resolved when the G drops to the F, and then you get just the minor triad on the second chord there. So it's a little bit different. Suspended chords in popular music and jazz today, you're really just looking at the vertical stack notes. What are the notes happening right now? If the third is missing, it's going to be some kind of suspended chord. In voice leading classical Western music, what you're looking at more, the suspension is actually the note itself. It's not really the triad. You want to think in those terms, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I will plan to see you in the next video, and take care.